start at the top with tight ends. Speaking of players not working out, Brock Bowers is our consensus number one tight end. No surprise here. I have him number one, and you have him number one. Didn't work out at the combine because of a lingering issue. Didn't work out at the Georgia Pro Day because of a lingering issue. I made this comp a few weeks ago on HQ, and you crapped all over it. I said Heath Miller had a injury during his pre-draft workout. He was a first-round pick and turned out to be pretty good. Is this going to affect his draft stock in terms of instead of going 15, he goes 25 or something?
I don't think he was not going to get out of the first round, and I think he'll go somewhere between 10 and 20. And will it affect his draft stock? Not out of the first round, but potentially manipulating. My point is when you're not the be all to end all or whatever you want to call future Hall of Famer, all you can do is help yourself because everybody saw what you did on tape. And I know that's the counter to why do we work out. But if you can get selected at 10 instead of 15, that's significant millions of guaranteed dollars. So to me, when you're going through this process, even though you're in a first round, you're positioning yourself for potential bigger payday if you go out and work out well. Plus, if he still have lingering issues and he didn't work out of his pro day and he doesn't work out before, then I have some concerns about how significant are the lingering issues.
You're not concerned about his toughness, though, because he came back in the middle of the season after the tightrope surgery and still balled out.
Yep.
He feels like, and by the way, it's on YouTube now, but Rick, me, and Bryant McFadden did a show for CBS Sports Network, a mock draft, just sort of not more general, but it was a show that was on TV, so it wasn't as in the weeds as sometimes we get here. But in that mock draft, Brock Bowers lasted until 32, and it was through no fault of his own. They were just a run on quarterbacks, wide receivers, offensive tackles, edge rushers, cornerbacks, and you could argue all more important positions than tight end right now.
Yeah, those are the premier positions. So, but let's say Brock Bowers did work out and knocked it out of the park, then maybe he won't get knocked down like in that mock, which is probably unrealistic.
I don't think it is. Why did Sam Laporta go in the second round?
Because of his production in college.
And that wasn't his fault. You just didn't know.
You didn't know what you know. You know this guy, if you just throw on the Auburn game.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, 8 catches, 156, 7 yards, touchdown. Georgia doesn't beat Auburn unless Brock Bowers is on the field that day.
That's correct. That's right. Not to get too far afield, we'll spend a couple seconds on it, but I was talking to our buddy Bryant McFadden about this, just about Marvin Harrison not working out. He's not working out for different reasons. So let's say Malik Neighbors runs a 4.33. Let's say 4.32. He beats Brian Thomas Jr. by a 100th of a second. And let's say he ends up going number one. And you love Roma Dunze for his competitiveness and not unwillingness to quit. Is there a chance in this world where Marvin Harrison Jr. is the third wide receiver off the board?
I don't think the third. I think he'll still go ahead of Odunze. I'd just be interesting to see next week what we think coming out of the LSU Pro Day. And do we flip them or do we keep it like we currently have it?
All right. What is your comp for Mr. Brock Bowers?
It's been everybody's comp. So it's not, I put a combination of Kelsey / Kittle is my comp for him.
I went with a souped-up Dalton Kincaid to keep it more recent. They're about the same height and weight. They have the same body type.
I know.
They look like they're in your pickleball league in shorts and T-shirts. But they're the best athletes when they show up. Dalton Kincaid is not a horrible comp. Dalton Kincaid's a really good football player, and I think Brock Bowers is a better athlete.
Yeah. No, that's good. Yeah, I'll give you do you want me to pat you on the back?
Thank you. He's a better blocker than Dalton Kincaid, no doubt about that. All right, the highest he could get drafted. All right, let's go through this here. So Chargers at 5, they're not taking him that high, are they?
No.
Titans at 7, taking offensive tackle probably. The Bears don't need him at Cole Kmet. What about the Jets at 10?
Potentially. I think that's where his potential first landing spot is.
All right, number 10, and then the lowest he could go. I mean, we had him going 32nd in that. He's not getting out of the first round.
No.
What if Tyler Guyton and Brock Bowers are there at 32 and you're the Chiefs?
Yeah. Well, there's no question in my mind. I'm taking Bowers. I mean, Bowers is a unique talent at the
Okay.
position. How can you even have that discussion?
Well, Donovan Smith is gone. They need help at left tackle. Tyler Guyton's the right tackle, but I mean they need to get a tackle.
Right, but all the other tackles are gone. You're
Yeah.
just going to have to swing around and get one the second time on Friday.
All
But
right.
you can't pass up Brock Bowers, then
No,
to me,
you
you're
cannot.
insane.
Here's the thing. You can line him. What is Rick doing? What is that, Devo? What's he trying to do? Get the thing to focus?
I have no idea.
Devo's just putting up random Rick Spielman gifts. He's
I think
punching
he was
at the
trying to
camera.
high five the camera. Or
Oh,
pat
he's
the
high-fiving
camera
the
on
camera.
back last year.
Gotcha. All right. Thanks for the high five, Rick. That makes you feel better. What a time to be alive.
Yeah.
Let me ask you something. If 3 years ago, I say this, if I say this occasionally, if I came up to you and showed you that thing and said, "This is your future," what would have had to have gone wrong for you to end up high fiving a camera sitting across from me?
I was like, really? God, am I looking forward to
that? I guarantee you don't take any more days off between now and then. You're like, all right, I gotta buckle down. This is getting serious. All right, next up, number 2, Ben Sinnott. You fell in love with him before.
Two?
It is, in fact, my number 2.
Oh,
then things get interesting.
You have a change of heart on everything we do.
No, you talked me into him at the Senior Bowl. We watched him before the Senior Bowl. I think we talked about him leading up to the Senior Bowl. We had a chance to talk with him at the Combine. This guy feels like he's all about football. And one of the things I took away from our Combine conversation is how he wanted to improve as a pass blocker, and he got baptism by fire in that he had to face the Alabama kids, Will Anderson Jr., Dallas Turner, in that game, in the playoff game. The playoff game I believe you were at.
Yep.
And then he had to go through Will McDonald IV. That's Will's last name, right? The Jets' first-round pick?
Yeah.
Yeah. Will McDonald IV faced him several times throughout his career. He was at Iowa State. And that was a big part of what he thought his identity was as a football player. He's a fantastic in space. He can line up anywhere, showed good hands in third of the season. That showed off at the Senior Bowl. And I'll just ask you here, what's your comp for Ben Sinnott? And you can go into your why you love him so much.
Just to correct you so we don't get yelled at by what listeners out there, it wasn't a playoff game. It was a Sugar Bowl, but it was a Power 6 that won the Final Four.
Thank you for the distinction. Yep, that's right.
Against Kansas State. I agree with everything. This kid has a huge chip on his shoulder. He was a walk-on at Kansas State, overcame that. When you talk to him, when you watch him play, he's always out to prove people wrong. So I think he'll continue to do that in the NFL with everybody that has doubts on this kid. Multiple position player, H-back, fullback, tight end. Really like him as just a really good football player. Tested well at the Combine. I mean, ran, I think, in the 4.6s, but had a 40-inch vertical jump. All the athletic test numbers, I think, kind of took people back by how explosive he was in some of those test numbers. So I think his guy's going to come out and carve a role immediately right away. And I kind of put him in and I said this before, new comp, a little bit of a Tyler Kroft when he came out, but more of a poor man, Sam Laporta is what I've seen him. And I thought I saw that down at the Senior Bowl. I think he's a little bit underrated right now, but I think he could surprise some people and be a significant contributor next year, whoever selects him.
And in fact, he was you mentioned the Sam Laporta comp to him at the Combine, and he's been telling teams that's who he sort of patterns his game after. I went a little old school because I'm a more of a football historian than you are. You're pretty new to the game. Dallas Clark.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thanks.
No one cares.
What they do care about, Rick, is that he ran a 4.68 that you talked about there. He had a 40-inch vertical.
Yeah.
Sweet mercy. And he ran his 3-cone was 6.82, which is bonkers for someone who's almost 6'4", 250 pounds. So he feels like a Sam Laporta guy in that he's probably going top 15 in the second round.
Yeah. I think Bowers is by far only first round tight end. Not comparable to last year's depth at the position when you had Kincaid, Musgrave, all those guys that came out. This year, I think Sinnott will be the second player tight end off the board, but I see him second, not getting out of the second round right now.
All right, let's see here. New England picks at 34. Is that too rich?
Yeah, I think it depends on who's still on the board, and
Yeah, that's true.
it's hard to predict until you see who they take in the first round until the end of this free agency if they add any more. So right before the draft, as a part of our meetings is okay, we know everybody's needs if they were filled or not in free agency. And then as you go through the draft, you see who they take, and then we would cross off that need. So I think you look at your board, you look at the other team's needs, but you keep up to date on that by in real time so you know potentially where they can go. So it's hard once you get out of the first round.
Yep.
I mean, to try to pick or select, a second round mock, even though we did it and I thought it was pretty good. But until you get everybody's needs in real time, it's hard, especially when you go past the second round, then you're just shooting in the dark.
All right, I'm going to tell you exactly who they're going to take or which team is going to take. This is easy. You ready?
Yep.
At pick number 47, if Darren Waller decides to retire and he's considering it,
yeah,
the New York Giants at 47.
I could see that.
All right, there you go. Put it in the books. Don't bet it, though, and blame me if it doesn't work out. All right, next up, number 3. Now, this is interesting because my number 3 is my guy Theo Johnson, who you are not as fond of as I am. Your number 3 is Jashon Sanders.
Your former guy.
My former guy, who's now my number 4.
Yeah.
So
you used to love his number 2, but now you keep dropping him.
I keep dropping him. I like him. We talked to him at the combine. I thought he was sounded very serious about football. Nice young man, very respectful to his elders as he spoke with us. Incredible athlete. Sometimes it felt like he disappeared, and maybe that's just a function of maturing as a football player. He had some focus drops at times. I wish he were a better blocker, but the athleticism is there. It's just dripping off of him and Xavier Worthy and A.D. Mitchell and all those guys. Jonathan Brooks. It was clear as day, but I just thought the inconsistency and the lack of blocking made him a little less desirable, if you will, than Ben Sinnott, for example. And let me double check. So there, oh, dang it. Hold on. I want to see his numbers at the combine. So he ran 4.69, so just a hair slower than Ben Sinnott. That's all he did. He didn't do 3-cone or even do the vertical. Maybe did it this pro day. I have to check. But 6'3", 245. So same height, 5 pounds lighter than Ben Sinnott.
So you're on Sanders?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. His the Alabama game put him on the map. I know you liked him in our summer scouting school series because of his receiving skills. I don't doubt his receiving skills. I just don't think he's a blocker. I think he's a receiving tight end only. And then he is a good athlete, but you really liked his speed. I've always thought that his speed was good, but not great. And I was right again. Compared to you,
thank goodness.
Combine. So I think he's below average in pass protection. I just think this guy is going to be a receiving kind of role type guy. So,
all right. So who does that translate to comp wise?
Coming out, and I hope maybe I'm wrong and he turns into this guy. But coming out, who was a good receiving tight end, I can't remember what his test numbers were. David Njoku.
Oh, okay. I'll tell you what his test numbers were in a minute.
Did you have a comp?
Yeah, you're probably going to love it. So, you're not 6'4", 246. You're right there. He ran a 4.64. His 3-cone was 6.97. He did 21 on the bench. Man, that's pretty good. 10-inch hands, which is similar in hands to what Jashon Sanders has. All right, not bad, not bad. Like he's not Evan Ingram. Evan Ingram's a better athlete and actually weighed like 15 pounds less somehow. Evan Ingram came out at like 234-ish. I went with a little better version, not as good a blocker, but the athleticism that we were looking for didn't quite pan out. Brevin Jordan out of the U went to Houston.
Yeah, no, I remember him. Yeah.
All right. I think Brevin was a better blocker. Look, I'm not trying to crap all over Jashon Sanders. He needs to be a better blocker, and he admitted as much to us, but he struggled with that at times. That said, third round pick, I have him.
I'd say third. I don't see him in the second.
Yeah. And I mean, it could be a situation where sometimes these tight ends that you like athletically or whatever reason slip to early day 3 as well, just because teams are, as you just mentioned, are focused on other needs. as the board unfolds. Would you be shocked if he went in the fourth?
Yeah, I would a little bit.
Okay.
But I think the rest of these guys, Senate to me was the only potential second rounder. The rest of these guys are third and fourth rounders, in my opinion.
All right. Next up, finally, my guy gets some love. Theo Johnson out of Penn State, Debo's guy. As I mentioned, he was my tight end 3. He is your tight end 5. And Theo Johnson wasn't asked to do a whole bunch at Penn State, but Penn State threw the ball exactly 12 times all season. So, I mean, it's sort of a Sam Laporta type situation. I think he had 34 catches, which doesn't compare to when you're talking about Brock Bowers, but you have to sort of read between the lines. 7 of those catches, Rick, touchdowns. So he was utilized in the red zone. I think he has a big catch radius. He's enormous, and he tested through the roof. 6'6", 260, 10.25-inch hands, ran a 4.57, and had a 39.5-inch vertical. And those are great numbers, just, if you're doing field day. But I thought that translated at times in terms of the athleticism on the field. And he's a good blocker. He can line up anywhere. He plays in line. He can handle defensive ends if you use him in the right way. I'm not telling you he's going to block Willie Anderson Jr. every single snap. But I thought he went to the Senior Bowl and did some good things and has an opportunity to be a day 2 pick.
Traditional Y to me.
Yeah.
I didn't think the test numbers at the combine showed up on the tape. I think he's an efficient blocker. I'll give you that. I think he's a short to intermediate route runner and production. I understand Penn State's offense, but I didn't think he was special with the ball in his hands after the catch. I do think he has a large catching radius and can bring the ball in. But I just didn't see those test numbers translate to what I've seen on tape. He didn't look that explosive on tape as he did at the combine.
So knowing all that, what's your comp? And it sounds like he might slip into day 3 for you. Is that what I'm hearing?
I think with the test numbers, he'll probably be a third rounder. Someone
Okay.
take a swing on him just because of the potential athletic upside. But when I watched him, he reminded me of Shoemaker from
Luke Schoonmaker out of Michigan.
Yeah, because he was a big guy that had a lot of intermediate production, adequate blocker. I just didn't see any explosiveness in his game, and I didn't see any explosiveness in Theo's game. Like I said, the explosive numbers that you saw at the combine.
All right. I like him as a day 2 guy. We'll see where he goes. The tight ends
But
are
I
something.
think you got to give him credit. He's one of those guys that did pop up a little bit down at the Senior Bowl.
Yeah.
That were better than what you've seen. So he is one of those guys that are ascending, not descending through this pre-draft process. So I'm not going to argue with you that he may end up in Friday for sure.
And by the way, how often do you see 6'6", 259 run a sub 4.6? That's pretty rare. But to your point, it didn't show up on tape necessarily. But I mean, I think, and maybe he lost weight I don't know. But I liked his game even before he ran, and that just sort of solidified it for me. I take him on day 2, and I'd probably turn him into a Pro Bowler. But that's how we build our team, Rick.
Okay.
All right.
I'm just talking to Debo in the corner.
Yeah. I don't know where you guys are going to leave me on the side of the road, but I look forward to finding that out. Next up, number 5 on the list, Cade Stover. And we've been talking about Cade Stover, feels like, for 3 years coming out of Ohio State. He was your tight end 4. He was my tight end 5. And he had the benefit of playing with a good quarterback in 2022. He had to share reps with all those wide receivers that went in or will go in the first round at Ohio State. I feel like he does a lot of things well. I can never get a feel for him. Maybe it's sort of like Theo Johnson with you, but what's your read on Cade Stover?
No, I do have a feel for Theo Johnson, and I was very clear with that. So,
all right. What's your take on Cade Stover then? My apologies.
Yeah, boy, you don't listen to the scout in the corner very well.
He's getting me fired. That's what my concerns. I'm trying to get him out of here.
Maybe on that RV that Debo's driving us from Baton Rouge to Chapel Hill, North Carolina, you may get left on the road somewhere on Tobacco Road down there where you're from. They may just
I'm not
at the house.
Not stepping foot off the RV, I'll tell you that.
I think this kid is a jack of all trades, master of none, if that makes sense. I think
is that a good thing?
That's a very good thing because I think he can do everything well. He has a very well-rounded game. He's just not exceptional at one thing. He can block, so he can line up as a traditional Y. I think as a linebacker, he was converted in 2022 to tight end, so he's still growing and learning the position. I think he improved his route running this year. He does have good hands for a guy that was on the defensive side of the ball. I think he's more than athletic enough. I think he can play H. He can play traditional Y. I think some teams will even look at him as potential fullback stuff because of his aggressiveness and his finish as a run blocker. So I'm giving him a compliment as that a really good football player across the board, but doesn't do anything exceptional, but does everything very good, very well.
Yeah, as I looked at my notes here, I like the way that he came back to the football when he was running his routes. He was a hands catcher, and then I put it's Gronk time. So he runs through arm tackles, and he's incredibly physical, even though he only weighed in at 247, 6'4", 247. That's plenty big enough. Ran a 4.65. That shows that athleticism in the open field. Even though he was my tight end 5, I had him going in the 3rd round.
Yeah, I'll bet you $1 he goes before Theo.
All right, let's put that down, Debo. I'm on Team Debo and Penn State, Theo Johnson, and Rick is on Team Chris Spielman and taking the Ohio State. Ohio State's Kate Stover. I'll give you my comp first, and then you can take a deep breath and give me yours. Foster Moreau.
Okay, that's not bad.
Oh, there we go.
So
That's the best reaction ever.
Ever.
yeah,
High five. Who you got for Cade? Yeah.
You ready for this one?
No.
A little bit Dalton Knox.
Oh. Yeah, Dalton's thick. Dalton's thicker than people give him credit for.
Yeah, but thought he was a good football player. Now he really, grew and developed, and I think this kid has a little bit of a ceiling like a Dalton Knox or Dawson Knox.
Dawson, sorry.
Yeah, up in Buffalo.
Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox. Yeah. And that's not a bad ceiling. If you're going to have a ceiling, you want it to be Dawson Knox. You don't want it to be, Ryan Wilson in 8th grade. All right. Those are our top 5 tight ends. Let me look quickly to see if there's any guys that I want to mention. Dallin Holker, out of Colorado State is another guy that I like. We didn't talk about him here. And then in terms of a late, Jaheim Bell, his season didn't get quite like we had hoped. South Carolina transfer went to Florida State. He was down at the Senior Bowl. And I mentioned Tip Ryman at Illinois. I don't know if you've seen him yet, Rick, but he's a day 3 guy that I liked him. Sort of surprised watching. He was at the combine as well.
And then the kid from Michigan too,
AJ Barner.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a run on tight ends on day 3 for sure.
Yep.
So these 5 guys we talked about, Rick, how many go on day 1 and 2?
1 on day 1. I'll say all those 4 will go on day 2.
All right. You want to make $1 bet on that?
Yeah.
All right. I'll say at least one of those guys slips to day 3, Debo. Got to make my money back.